Welcome to the WriterDojo with your hosts, Steve Diamond.
Yippee-ki-yay, well, and all that.
And Larry Correia.
I'm tired of these snakes on this plane.
Today's episode, Profanity.
Welcome, everybody, to the WriterDojo. Glad to have you back with us. Today, Larry, we're going to have some fun.
Yeah, so producer Jack is very good at editing out the bits where Steve and I swear. And Steve and I both swear a lot in real life. And so the fact that we can go, 40, 45-minute episodes without dropping any F-bombs is pretty good for us.
Yeah. I mean, we got to hang our hat on something here and there, right?
But
so
today is not that day.
Today is not that day. So the other day, producer Jack sends us a little clip in between episodes, or in between, during the commercial breaks or whatever. We kind of end up chatting about, kind of brainstorming sometimes what we want to talk about for the rest of the episode, or just shooting the bull or whatever. And
this one was me. This one was me talking about my week.
And this was, if you remember back a few weeks ago, there was the whole bull crap about him being disinvited because, Larry, you're so problematic.
Yeah, and so I kind of went off, and I was telling Steve about it, and I was pretty raw. And so Jack recorded all that. Well,
yes.
But he sent us a clip of it with with
the beeps,
with 150 beeps in it, as I was describing the people that were trying to get me kicked out of stuff.
Funny, interesting thing. During all the beeps, it was strange. I toggled. I kind of wrote them all down in Morse code. Oddly enough, it was still swear words. Weird.
There's levels. But today's episode, we want to talk about using profanity in your fiction.
Right.
And because there's actually some stuff to this. And anybody who's read my fiction knows that I swear a lot. I use a lot of profanity in Monster Hunter. I use a lot of profanity in
Hard Magic.
In Hard Magic, especially with one particular character.
Toru.
So we're going to, now he's just Mahdi.
Oh, that's right, Mahdi, sorry.
Yeah, and so we're going to go through and we're going to talk about using profanity in fiction, because there are some traps that you fall into.
And now, far be it for me to I guess, defend George Martin. Okay. But I remember back when, book 4 came out like 3 decades ago, that people were complaining about how George Martin used swearing in his fantasy fiction. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, I don't understand why you care. He decided to use it because it got his point across. If an author decides to use profanity within their fiction, that's their prerogative. Okay. You and I, we've grown up around cows and cops and military.
Yeah.
All of which swear a lot. The cows especially.
Actually, it's ironic. Having done all those and work with all those a lot, the cows by far has the most profanity involved.
And we both, I grew up in California. There's, no matter what you read in fiction, it's never as colorful as what you hear on the playground at school.
Yeah, no, dairy cows, man, they are the worst. But like 12-year-old boys are even
dude, they're way
cruder.
worse.
Yeah.
So, in fiction, swearing happens a lot. And I think that there are reasons why you can and should use it, perhaps. But there are also reasons why maybe you want to dial it back. And so, first of all, Larry, let's talk about swearing in general.
Okay.
There are basically 3 schools of profanity.
And everything kind of like fits into this, or is a sub.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much fits within this.
There's some pretty creative ones outside of this too, but they're pretty rare.
I mean, if you can mix and match. Whatever.
Oh,
okay.
I will.
All right. So first, blasphemies, right? If you look across history, any religious blasphemy almost becomes instantaneous profanity, right? Was the word profanity profane?
Yep.
Right? Which means it's basically anti-holy, anti-religious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, blasphemies. We see them all the time. I mean, the whole idea in England, right? The idea of the, bloody. Well, They're referencing religion. They're referencing Christ.
Really? I thought that was...
Or...
Oh, see, I don't know. I'm learning stuff.
It can also be referred to one of the other schools of blasphemy or of profanity, which is sex related.
Yeah.
Right. Or bodily function related. Right.
Yeah.
So so you've got your religious connotations, you've got your sex connotations, and then that leaves the only other one, and that's scatological connotations. Yeah. Exactly.
And the 1,000 different euphemisms.
Mm-hmm. So
poor Jack, he's going to be doing a lot of beef
here.
here.
Man.
I'm going to get going here in a second.
All right. If you're going to include swearing in your story, Larry, why would you?
Okay. First off, to me, and this is funny because it's just a tool in the toolbox. It's my art is created with words, and I'm not going to limit myself to what words I can use. And every now and then I'll get a review where somebody is like, "Oh, I like this book, but I could really do without the potty words." Well, I don't give a All right. And so here's the thing. If I'm writing, say, Monster Hunter,
mm-hmm.
Can you imagine writing Monster Hunter, a group of paramilitary commando capitalist professional monster killers who did not use bad words? How would that feel right? Or would that feel like it'd feel like because there's no way that monster hunters who kill and all day long with giant machine guns are they're murdering all day long and getting paid lots of money to risk their lives, and their best friends die horribly in front of them, and it's blood and guts and snot and bits of everything everywhere. And you think these people are going to go through that and they're not going to swear? Oh no, they're going to swear.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to swear a lot. And like I said, we work with cops, we work with military, and so I actually kind of went back to dairy farmer level swearing there, and I toned it down quite a bit for another thing I'll get to here in a second.
Yes.
About why you should tone it down.
Exactly.
Notice all the beeps there when I turned that up on purpose, right?
Right.
It got a little hard to understand for people watching because it's just like profanity, unnecessary. And I'm doing this on purpose, okay, to illustrate a point. Now, I want you to imagine that, take a transcript of what I just said about writing Monster Hunter and using a lot of extra profanity, right? If you looked at that transcript, it'd be like, bad word, okay, bad word. Now, the way the human brain processes written information is not the way you process audible information. When your brain processes audible information, you get the words in your ear, your brain says, okay, boom, done. And then you're still listening as more information is fed into your ear. When you do written and you're reading communication, your brain is reading one line, right?
Right.
However, your brain is also looking ahead, and you are seeing the next line subconsciously before you read it. And your brain is still processing the previous line that you already read once.
Right.
So basically what happens is if you drop a F-bomb in your written text, your brain sees it before you get to it. That's one. You read the line. That's two. You're still thinking about it. That's three. So swearing in written form has 3 times the power.
Well, and think about this too. If you're reading some form of text and it's just swear, you're seeing it 3 times, right? As you just talked about, Larry. But now you're seeing it here and there and there. And so it compounds.
It's almost an exponential thing. So there was a book I read once a long time ago, and it was actually I'll name it. It was Rogue Warrior by Dick Marcinko, or Ghost written by somebody on behalf of Dick.
I was going to say I haven't read that one.
Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
Navy SEAL dude. Colorful character. I met him once at SHOT Show. He was really drunk at the time, but colorful character. And the thing is, though, so whoever Ghost wrote this book actually tried to write like they talk.
Oh, that's a problem.
Here's the problem. When you write like people talk, so take the transcript of like how I was talking there.
And this doesn't just apply to swearing, by the way.
No, it doesn't. What happened, though, is if you had, in one paragraph, your brain has now read that, and that wasn't 10 swear words, that's 30 swear words.
Yeah.
Now do that for every single line of dialogue in the book, And so what happens is, as the reader, you're reading this, and I know what they're going for. It's like, oh, we're Navy SEALs.
Yeah,
we're so gritty.
We're gritty.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, so what happens is you're reading it, and as the reader, you're like, oh my gosh.
You guys didn't see. I just, as we both like jinxed each other with gritty, I gave him gun fingers.
Yeah. We do like our gritty stuff. But so, okay, guys, so when you think about entertainment swearing, you want to save it. This is tools in your toolbox, but it's like cooking a dish. If your only seasoning is salt, and your dish is going to be too salty if you just threw lots of salt.
You know me. I do love my super ridiculously hot shit, right? I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love it.
Steve loves hot stuff.
But there comes a point where even I can recognize where I'm like, guys, this is just hot for the sake of being hot.
Yeah.
This is gritty for the sake of being gritty. What is its point here?
This is profane for the sake of being profane. I think Quentin Tarantino, and I've said this on the show before, Quentin Tarantino is overrated.
Completely overrated.
He's a very overrated director.
Plus
That
he's a
said,
douche.
no, especially if you live here in Utah, where we have Park City. There's been some incidents involving Quentin Tarantino with the locals that are pretty hilarious.
This guy. It's like, okay, this guy does a movie and has the audacity to be like, all cops are terrible and bad. But hey, cops, can you come volunteer your time for free to be like, basically be my security?
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah. So when I say Tarantino, though, okay, think about there's some Tarantino scenes where the goal is like, I want to be, how shockingly profane can I be in this one scene to show you how edgy I am?
Yep.
And here's the thing. That's funny once, and then it's cringy after that.
Yep.
It's kind of like the old joke about male nudity in a movie. Male nudity in a movie once is funny. Male nudity twice in a movie is torture.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. And so you can have a dude like show up on screen naked once and you're like, oh, it's funny. It's like, whatever. And then after that, it's too much. So overabundance of profanity actually is going to have that same effect. It becomes tortuous. It's annoying.
I think you and I, with the people that we've been around, whether through schools, through farms, through militaries, through cops, we've been around so much of this swearing that, of this type of talk and language, so to speak, that we kind of, when we audibly hear it, we kind of don't care. It's just another word. Like, it's like the word's only as important as the power that you give it, so to speak.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But when you read it, and I know I'm this way, and I don't know if you are. I want to know. When I read it, if it's, and I'll bring this around to a specific reference to you here in a sec. When I read it, if all it is swear, profane, blasphemy, because, and I think this relates back to how often you're processing it from a mental state and from a psychological state, I get tired out by it.
Yeah, exactly. I am the same way. Do you remember the episode where we talked about plot and pacing?
Yeah.
And I used the analogy of the sine wave, whereas if you had your plot is at the same level and the same intensity continually, even if it's like ramped all the way to 100 the whole time, then 100 has now become your normal. You've turned the knob all the way to 10. There's no up and down anymore. There's no interest, and you just tune it out. Like
Michael Bay explosions,
Michael
right?
Bay movies. Have you ever watched a Michael Bay movie and you got bored of explosions? Because explosion. Eventually, even explosions are boring.
Yep.
So you got to take it up, take it down. Profanity is the same way. So when I use profanity in a book, usually what I'll do is when I get done with a book, and assuming it's a book that has profanity, because some of my books don't, I will always do a Control F search at the end. I'm dead serious.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
I know. Well, it actually should be controlling my. So what I'll do is at the end of the book, I go Control F, and I'll put in, and I'll see how many times. Use the word 87 times. Okay, that's pretty excessive. Let's see where I used it.
Again, guys, it's not 87 really.
No, it's actually that's times 3.
That's 251.
So what happens is then I go and I'll put in Control F, whatever.
Right.
And I'll go through and I will see how often did I use that word, And why? Was it appropriate? Did it actually is it seasoning or is it just too much extra salt?
Yeah.
And so like when I did Hard Magic, I did that. And at the end, I discovered that I had used the F word like 80 something times. And I want to say like 75 of them were from one character.
Right.
Mahdi. And that actually was character, if you know the character appropriate, because that guy was a right? Okay. And however, it was too much. It was too galling.
Yep.
And so I edited it down. I think I went from like he used it like 80 times down to like 7 times. But by only having it 7 times, all of a sudden it was like had that little more potency and a little more meaning. It wasn't just wastefully thrown out there. It actually was a little more of a tool in my toolbox as opposed to just spam.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I when I think about this, I also think about things like, what's the rule that we always talk about, like using exclamation points?
Yeah.
You know, how we say, you shouldn't really have that many exclamation points in your fiction.
No, there's some authors who even like don't use exclamation points at all.
Nah, I don't agree with that.
But to me, that's like saying don't use profanity at all. It's the same thing. Any of these like hard and fast rules,
it's a tool, right? Think about the movie The Thing. Okay, we both love that movie.
Oh yeah, love that movie.
You know, Spiderhead. Okay, that scene.
Yeah,
dude's head like pops off his body, falls to the ground, sprouts legs, and starts. Woo!
Almost 40 years old, that scene still holds up.
And what you notice is the character, and I think I got this right. He basically looks at it and they see it go and they just go, it's either holy or it's you've got to me. It's one of those two. I can't remember which one it is, right? But you as the viewer instantly think the exact same thing.
Yep.
Because it's natural and it feels appropriate to that specific situation. But leading up to that point and following that point, honestly, in The Thing, there really isn't that much swearing in that movie, Larry.
It's interesting. I don't remember that. It's such a great movie, and I don't remember.
Because it's not important.
Yeah.
You know, what's important is the danger that they're in and the relatability of it.
Yeah.
So you relate to the swearing, you relate to the fear, the dread, the shock, going back to horror terms. But you also relate to them when they use that, so to speak, punctuation, that flavor, that tiny spice. You relate to it because most people in that exact same situation, if they didn't faint, they'd probably swear.
Yep.
Right? All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about all this. We'll be right back.
Do you want to become new friends with an old book? Sunflower Sales prides itself on its wide-ranging selection of books, from fiction to practical, whimsical to philosophical, as well as excellent customer service and fast shipping. Browse our selection today and sail on the seas of knowledge. Go to ebay.com/str/sunflower-sales today. Don't worry, I'll put a link in the show notes. Sunflower Sales, SAILS on eBay. Check them out.
Welcome back. All right. In the interim, it was just one long string of swearing, and Jack had to beep all of it out. So it was just one. It was just one long like emergency broadcast beep. Beep. All right. So, all right, Larry. In a lot of fiction, I mean, you write a lot of contemporary stuff. I read a lot of contemporary stuff. In those situations, the swearing is more or less, shocker, contemporary. Now, if you kind of look back over the history of our world, you'll find that a lot of this swearing goes way, 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 way back. I mean,
yeah.
In general, all these words have
proud human tradition.
All these words have existed for, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Or some variant, which is actually really interesting because if you look at like Shakespeare was super profane.
Yes.
The Bible actually is way more profane than people. Like people are like, oh, I'm religious. I don't ever swear. It's like, the Apostle Paul sure did.
Yeah.
And they just don't know it.
Or if you look at things like fiction that was written right around, say, the 20s, 30s, 40s was heavily censored in terms of swearing. Again, I remember, I've talked about this a lot, but the novel The Maltese Falcon, because of the time in which it was written, there's almost zero swearing in it because of the way these things were censored in those days.
Codes.
The code, right? But that's all well and good, okay? But a lot of our readers, Larry, and a lot of our listeners, they write fantasy and they read fantasy, like secondary world fantasy, not our freaking world, right? Yeah. They don't, in those situations, what are our options?
You got two. And like we said, you already mentioned George Martin, who will just swear.
It does, yeah. I mean, that's
his
option story
A.
is basically European.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is where most of our stuff comes from anyway.
And if he wants to swear, he can swear.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Now, the option B, however, is you make up your own thing. You make up your own profanity. This has two perks.
Yeah.
One is it makes the book more sellable to a younger audience and to parents of that younger audience.
A much bigger, broader audience.
Yep. And the second part of that is that you don't run into the deluge issue we were talking about. And actually, I guess there's three, because then it's a great tool for world building.
Yeah.
So the example we're going to use,
potentially,
if you do it right, because we have some examples where it's bad. But the big one everybody thinks of is Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
Frack.
Frack. It's my favorite.
Yeah, frack. Okay, but actually, that frack and this, frack and that, and that actually works. And look, producer Jack doesn't have to go through and edit out every time I say frack. Fracking this, fracking that. Frack is fine.
Well, and it was a great way within the confines of that series to insinuate exactly. It was the same thing. It's the same word. Okay, it's literally the same word.
Yeah.
But by putting it by just switching it just a little bit. One, they got around every TV censor, period. They could say that word as often as they wanted. They could say every other word if they wanted, and oftentimes they did. But the audience knew exactly what it meant.
Yeah.
And it was so, I don't know, it was like it was marketed, so to speak, so perfectly that it's actually become common vernacular in our world now.
Oh, yeah.
I actually use that word all the time.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it's funny because I actually use friggin'. I use friggin' a lot, too. Yeah. I just like friggin'. It's just a cool word to write. Friggin. No G at the end.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Apostrophe.
Yeah. It's funny because I see people who are like, I don't swear, I'm not profane like you, and then they'll use frack. And it's like, come on, dude, we all know
it's the same thing.
Yeah, we all know what Starbuck was going for here, dude. But the thing is, the other example we're going to use was about Son of the Black Sword.
Yeah.
So when I originally wrote Son of the Black Sword, I actually had a pretty copious amount of profanity, like regular profanity.
Of contemporary, of our
it was
swearing.
The school of...
the usuals.
Yeah, which is funny because everybody just heard beep, beep, beep. Yeah. But it was the standard swearing. However, when Steve read this as one of my alpha readers, he pointed out that first thing I said about when you have a fantasy world, and if you are less profane, you're more likely to sell it to parents for younger readers, which is a bigger audience. Yep. And Steve's like, I don't think you don't gain anything by doing that in this world.
And for me, I remember reading it. And that was my main takeaway. It wasn't, Larry, how dare you swear?
Oh, no, because, you should hear us.
That wasn't it. That wasn't the point. It was, this is new. This is a new series for you. Look, everybody's read Monster Hunter. Everybody's read Hard Magic. They know these series. They know the kind of language you use. If a person is reading these books, like, they have that, they've been made that promise, and that promise has been kept. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a certain level set.
But with something new, and at the time, this was your first foray into epic fantasy, in a way there's a much different audience for this.
Yeah, and it's actually proved to be a very large audience. And the Venn diagram doesn't overlap completely with my regular audience.
No. And that's super important.
Yeah, it's been very good.
But you mentioned in the first half of the episode, Larry, where the idea being you're trying to appeal to as many people as possible with this.
Right. With what's authentic to that.
Correct. Now, your real world swearing in that, my again, as as we said, the point was, what are you gaining by doing this, and what are you losing by doing this?
Exactly. It's like when we talk about censorship versus self-editing.
Yes.
It's self-editing. Now, and so I decided to go the second route, the FRAC route, the Battlestar Galactica route, where in this case I had a unique world. It's 1,000 years after any world we would recognize. And so at that point I was like, you know what, going back to what you said earlier about the scatological, religious, or sex. And so actually what I did is I actually decided to go that. And so, the scatological stuff is just something that's considered gross and icky and stinky, and you don't want to mess with it, right?
Yeah, it's
some variation
bodily functions.
Well, in this case, and also the religious thing, I set it up the ocean as hell, right? Because demons live in the ocean. The ocean is bad. It's unclean. Every decent person wants to stay away from the ocean. So what I did is I took everything that was ocean related and I made that profanity.
Yes.
And it works brilliantly. It's awesome.
It works.
So fish are because, and also poor people eat fish. The only people who eat fish are the casteless. So there's also like this caste system snobbery about fish eaters. Yep. So fish eater became a derogatory term.
Yes.
And our fish breath was like hugely insulting. You're getting a duel to the death over that. And saltwater. Saltwater, they use saltwater the way we would use damn and hell.
Oh, okay.
Basically it's like saltwater. It's an exclamation. And because salt water is icky, it's bad, it's evil, it's where evil comes from.
The biggest thing, I think, Larry, and correct me if you disagree or you have another take on this, but when you're doing made up in-world swearing, like you did for this, or like another guy we know, Dan Wells, like he did in his Partials series, a lot of it has to feel natural. It has to feel like how I would like how you or I would casually say, well, damn, or like, whatever. It has to feel that natural within the headspace of that world.
Absolutely, that's key. If it feels tacked on, it's gonna feel fake and stupid. I think a great example is Firefly.
Okay.
Because what they did to get around the censors there is they swore in Chinese.
Yeah.
And depending on the actor, the Chinese was either really terrible or actually pretty decent, and the stuff they said is actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys couldn't speak Chinese to save their life. But they're throwing in these Chinese profanity bits or just like nasty swearing things. It works so perfect because they set up a world where basically like there was American or English and Chinese were the two primary languages. So having a bunch of people, I mean, Steve, you could swear in Spanish super fluently.
I do.
To this day, yeah.
Yes. Well, and so I was talking with my dad about this the other day. We were driving down to Vegas for a shoot that my son was doing for archery, and we were talking about we were having this like conversation about swearing for some reason. I don't even remember why, but I brought up how whenever you watch a show that is in Spanish, especially if it's Spanish from Mexico. So say like Traffic or anything of that nature. Narcos, right?
Pinche was every third word.
Well, yeah. And that's, I mean, gosh, in Mexico, that is a swear word, but it's so blasé. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
No, it's like damn.
It might not even be that level.
Yeah. It's
like,
so common.
It's almost dang.
Yeah.
But culturally, and this is important for swearing as well, culturally speaking, different cultures swear more than other cultures. Certain people swear more than other people.
Yeah.
In Mexico, basically every other word that everyone speaks down there is some derivative of a swear word. Okay? That's just the way it is. And when you watch something like, say, Narcos or Traffic or any of these shows, even if it's just something that by the rating standards like PG or PG-13, you listen, if you understand Spanish and you're listening to them, you're going, oh yeah, so that dude just swore like 17 times in like 5 words. I'm not sure how that happened.
The difference between the subtitles
and the subtitles,
the English subtitles and what's on, if you understand, is hilarious.
But I think what it is though, dude, I think it comes back to your psychological imprinting that we were talking about earlier. If they were to see that come up on the screen over and over and over and over again,
yeah,
it makes it actually worse. And look, reading subtitles is already kind of distracting for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So if you're reading a distracting subtitle and then you're distracted further by swear, it completely pulls you out of the story.
Absolutely. It's a trick, a psychological manipulation that we as the artists have to engage in. And there's some people like, well, I need to be authentic. Okay, Quentin Tarantino.
Well, what does authentic mean? What does that mean?
It doesn't mean anything. Okay, because here's the thing. If we were to make a realistic movie about Portuguese dairy farmers.
Oh, dude, there'd be no real words.
Dude, I think I've done like 8 to 10 hours at a time, like milking cows, where I think every other word in my mouth was you cow, you cow, you cow. You, I'm going to make you a hamburger, you I'm going to my truck to get my shotgun, you piece.
And that was like, and that's like just 30 seconds of milking.
And that's after I got kicked in the hands with covered hooves and hit in the face with covered tails. So yes, if you want to know who swears more than anybody else, and like I said, I've been all around.
Farmers.
You always hear, oh, someone swears like a sailor. No. I've known a lot of sailors.
No. Do you swear like a dairy farmer?
You swear like a dairy farmer.
Yeah.
And people just do not understand. We milked in a 1940s flat barn. So only other dairy farmers know what that means. Regular people have, that means that not only were you doing all this, you weren't doing it in comfort separated from the cows. You were doing it in between the cows.
Oh.
Where they're smashing you with their giant covered. And of course, everything is wet and slippery
somehow
and covered in snot.
In a drought, somehow everything's still gross and sticky and wet.
Yeah, and cows just blow snot everywhere. Yeah. And you're wearing rubber boots. Guess how much traction you have on a cement floor, wet cement floor, covered in snot and wearing rubber boots. I got multiple concussions as a kid.
Was it one of your broken noses from falling in one of those two?
No, actually, no. I did get hooked in the face by a cow once. As one of my many broken noses. One was I got hooked in the face. I actually dislocated my arm once, got hooked by a cow. And then the two fattest in the world will always get next to each other, and you're supposed to squeeze. We had these things called crowders. You would open the crowder.
Larry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but
and you have to squeeze between.
Given the Roald Dahl state of censorship, you're not allowed to use the word fat anymore.
Okay, these corpulescent.
Yes, that's more appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, but see, so guys, yes, dairy farmers swear a lot. So people are all like, "Well, Larry's profane." You think you have no idea? No, I swear a lot.
Now,
I really do.
Self-editing. Okay, self-editing.
I don't do that at church. There you go. That's my perfect example of self-editing.
For me, okay. When I'm writing, I look at swearing as a tool. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's
a hammer.
If you read it's a very big hammer.
It could be a scalpel or a blunt instrument.
Now, when I use it, those of you who've read my fiction, when you read it, you realize I barely ever swear in my fiction, and I write some horrific.
Yeah.
But I barely ever swear. This has less to do with me being, I don't know, offended or whatever. Like I've already said, I'm not really that offended by people swearing around me. I almost don't even hear it anymore.
No, I mean, we hang out.
Well, I mean, I went to high school in California, guys. Like,
no,
come on. I worked for a DoD contractor for a decade.
We were some of the least profane people there.
Oh, we had the helicopter search and rescue pilot that swore every other word.
Search and rescue pilot was great. Yeah. Now, like if we had to write Dan, our old Vietnam era,
it would be very eloquent swearing.
Oh yeah, that guy was precision. Yeah, he was a thing of beauty. And the thing is, I've written characters like that. I had Sam Haven.
Yeah.
There are some people, like, once again, this comes back to a character-specific thing. If you are writing a certain type of character, you're going to use profanity as a certain type of tool. If we were writing Dan, the eloquent, really cool, old Vietnam-era helicopter pilot, cool. That's the main thing. Dan could put words together in an artistic, beautiful way.
Yes.
And it was always, everything he said was always on point and poignant.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
But for me, okay, at my stage in my career, And also this can be determined by age group that you're writing for as well.
Oh,
this
yes,
is
guys.
super important.
Yes,
Okay,
we're not talking about middle grade here.
This is super important. Okay. Adults, basically anything goes. Okay. Whatever you want to do. No one cares. All right. But just like the darker your fiction is, the more you can potentially limit your audience. The more swearing in your novel, potentially you can be limiting your audience.
Yeah.
Okay?
Like going back to that Rogue Warrior thing.
Yeah.
You know how much I can swear and how much I come up around swearing. I found it galling.
Well, and I felt the same way when I was reading Jarhead, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same sort of thing.
What's the thing is, if you're talking about a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-old Marines, that's probably perfectly realistic of how they talk. But once again, it's the psychology of how it reads.
And then, there's something like Residue. Okay. Now that's a YA novel.
Yeah, I don't think you swore much at all in there.
I don't know that I did at all, actually. And part of that is because what is my audience?
Yeah.
I'm considering who I'm writing for. If I cast that net wider, I can potentially garner more and more readers.
Yeah.
Right? And again, back to what you said earlier, I'm not just marketing to the teenager, I'm marketing to their parents.
To the moms who buy the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although the vast majority of my readers for Residue are actually adults.
Well, so when I have people who are like, parents are like, is Monster Hunter appropriate for my kid?
Depends on your kid.
Depends on your kid.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Monster Hunter, like the first Monster Hunter has like maybe 5 F-bombs in it.
There's not that much swearing.
No, there's really...
Well, as far as like, okay, look, there's
they're all
different,
good.
there's different categories of swearing, right?
Parley-vous this...
Yeah, like
That was a great line.
your damns and your hells, okay, and your...
Yeah.
Like those are fairly basic,
Yeah.
right? Bastard, I've used that pretty frequently.
Geez, I don't even think, is that a bad word?
Again, contextual.
We'll have to see if here's the expression. Bastard. Did Jack beep it?
We'll find out. Stay tuned and we'll find out. And then, like things like that. But then when you start getting into, like the scene in The Wire, where every other word was,
Oh, exception.
Exactly.
That was such a good scene.
You see these things and there are different categories, right? Now, depending on, again, all of our, is this book appropriate for my teenage son or daughter? Well, one, I guarantee you they're hearing worse at school.
Yeah.
Is that okay? I don't think so. I'd prefer that my kids not be verbally assaulted all the time.
Yeah, but unless they're going to Hogwarts, that ain't happening.
I'm not even sure that really happens there. But is it okay to intentionally expose a kid to swearing? I don't know. I'm not your parent's kid, or I'm not your kid's parent. I'm definitely not your parent's kid.
Well, I hope not.
You don't know. Okay. Every person is different and everyone's going to process swearing different. Some people are can be super offended by it or are very sensitive to that thing.
Well, this episode's going to offend some people.
Of course it will.
I guarantee it will.
But on the flip side, something, if it's minor stuff, that tends not to offend quite as many people. Right. But the same rules apply. If is every other word, then at a certain point, you get tired of seeing that word in print.
It comes off also as kind of cringy and try-hard. Like, have you ever seen...
every freaking grimdark TV show out there?
Yeah.
Where they're like, okay, I love the shows by Flanagan. We're talking about Haunting at Hill House, Bly Manor...
I haven't watched those, but I heard really...
Midnight Mass, which is unbelievably good. And then he came out with another show that is way less good. It's called The Midnight Club. And it's kind of supposed to be almost... I feel like it's supposed to cater to the same, like, Stranger Things audience. But every time characters get on screen, it's like they force themselves into swearing. And it does not feel natural.
Yeah.
And it feels like they're only doing it to be edgy.
Yeah. There's something about tryhardism. Like it comes off as cringe.
These dudes might as well have dyed their hair black and give it a swoopy, Spider-Man 3 haircut.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Because there's just a point where, if you feel like you're trying too hard, people hate that.
Yep.
All right. And like I said, I a couple times in this episode turned up the profanity
On
to
purpose,
stupid levels to prove a point. Except for when I was talking about cows. That was all 100%
legit.
accurate. Yeah. Their cows are all evil. That's why we should eat them.
I'm not sure that you swore enough.
They deserve to be eaten. They're
Yeah.
delicious and evil. But the thing is,
Definitely delicious.
it's like if you try too hard, it comes off as trying too hard. It's like when you go and you have a group of friends or you have like a party and there's that one guy who's trying too hard to be liked,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Or there's that guy who's trying too hard to be tough,
Yeah.
you know? Or there's that guy who's trying too hard to be funny.
That's the most common,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter what it is they're going for, there's that vibe that where somebody crosses that line where it's now unnatural. They've entered the uncanny valley of human interaction where it's like, dude, just chill. Just chill.
Yeah.
And profanity in books is honestly like that. Sometimes you're just like, dude, just chill.
Yeah.
You know, do the control F at the end and subtract 30%. You know, it's like dial it back 20%, Squirrely Dan. You know, okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we're talking about here, right? And so honestly, I think that's a big part of it. And that way, when you do use it, like parlez-vous this, it's actually funny and it's cool and it hits.
So
right.
in the second Matrix movie, which most people will agree is not that great.
No, 2 and then 3 is just horrid.
There's a lot of problems with it.
And I
but
didn't watch 4.
there's the scene where Keanu Reeves, Neo, you know, he ends up, it's like a train station. There's a train platform and he gets down there and he kind of looks left, he looks right, and then he runs off the screen and then he comes in from the other screen, almost like Looney Tunes, right? And he comes in and he stops in the middle and he looks around and he goes, like, in the context, you're like, okay, yep, that's pretty funny. Good job.
Yeah.
All right. I get you. You know, like good job.
Contextually appropriate.
Contextually, again, it's a single exclamation point on a situation. There's nothing else. It's all contextual. No one else can do like the scene from The Wire, right?
No,
no one can ever do that again.
McNulty and Bunk peak performance of.
There's no way.
Yeah, that was
like
one of the best things ever.
And in that the context of the situation as you're watching it, because it's not even just about the word. It's about
It's amazing.
It's their character acting.
For those of you that haven't seen The Wire, I bet you could find this clip on the internet.
Yeah.
But it's usually referred. Probably look on YouTube. But then again, you might get other horrible things if you look for this. But
Oh, probably just type in The Wire, and then you know what the scene is. And
Yeah.
you'll probably get it. Hopefully.
Exception is usually what I heard it referred
Yeah.
to. But it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just two dudes going over basically
crime
a
scene.
crime scene.
Yeah.
And the only word they use is the F word, right?
But they use it as in every way.
A noun, an adjective, an adverb, like everything.
It's amazing. It's so good. Now, okay, so we talk about using it for spice. I want to say some of my favorite ones from my own books. Okay. And if I overused profanity, then these would lose their power. But like there's this one bit in Monster Hunter Siege where Owen is training and he's running in Alaska and he comes across a moose. And the line, and he's just like talking about the moose is just sitting there so defiant. But the line is, F you, I'm a moose.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like, because the moose ain't going to move.
Yeah.
It's a moose. But being able to say, F you, I'm a moose is hilarious. There's another scene in Nemesis where they're asking Franks what the plan is. Right? And it's just he's like, they're gone in, they're fighting the bad guys, big vinyl well, I think is kill and everything.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. And it's but that little extra spice is so much cooler than just kill everything.
Yeah. But if you'd been using all the swearing all the time throughout the whole book, then that line wouldn't have stood out.
There's no flavor.
No.
There's no flavor. Instead, F you, I'm a moose gets quoted all the time.
What do they say? All sizzle, no
steak.
no steak.
All hat, no cattle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you gotta. It's a powerful tool when used correctly. If you choose to use it, because it's not a tool for everybody.
Right. And look, a lot of this is going to depend on you. Again, the self-editing.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm writing for Deseret Books or Christian fiction,
Dude, there's not going to be any swearing.
yeah, clearly I'm not going to be using lines like "F you, I'm a moose."
Right.
Odds are, I would assume. Or if I'm writing for middle grade,
if you're writing for middle grade,
That'd be a great title though for middle grade for like a little cartoon. Kiyama Moose, just a big cartoon moose on the cover. That'd be great. I'd read that.
in middle grade, depending on your audience, like you really have to be aware of what you're saying in those books.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Middle grade, there are rules. Okay. You don't swear. You just
specifically grounded in marketing.
Yep.
Well, honestly, one of the reasons they don't have the swearing is because the real target isn't middle grade kids. It's actually
moms.
It's moms.
It's moms and dads who are buying that book for their kids.
Yeah.
It's teachers who are stocking that book for their school's library.
Well, I think that used to be the case for school libraries. Now I think
school libraries now are dumpster
now
fires.
I think school libraries are like,
dude, they're dumpster fires.
I don't think Jack could like edit sufficiently for me to describe some of the stuff I've seen.
No freaking way. Oh man, I saw some of the books that my son brought home, and I'm like, you've got to be me with this. No way. There's no way you're reading this crap.
Yeah.
Get it out of here. I don't even want this in my house.
Yeah.
Not enough monsters killing people. Get out of here.
Yeah. Get it back to something healthy.
Ugh. All right. Okay. So in summary, guys, profanity, like everything else we talk about, is a tool. It has to be used in the correct context for you. If you're using it unnaturally, if you're forcing it in, just like anything else, if you're forcing, random expositional dumps of words or whatever into your fiction, that's bad. Same with swearing. If you're forcing all this extra unnatural swearing into your books, it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna be to the detriment of your story. Yeah. It cannot detract from your story. If it's not adding to your story, then there's no point to it. But again, just like anything else, you're gonna have to figure out what works for you. If it works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, then don't put it in. Don't worry about it. Like this isn't. Neither of us are telling you like you have to use X number of swear words. We're not like the rating standards board where they're like, well, it's a PG-13 movie, so you're only allowed the F word once or twice now, I guess.
I can't remember there was a movie. It was a John Travolta movie, and he hung a lampshade on that, where they talk about because I think it was Get Shorty. And he was talking about, and they're like, and they're sitting in the car. He's like, in a PG-13 movie, you're only allowed to use once. And that's like,
that's the one time for the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It was something like that.
Elmore Leonard.
I know. It was great. I miss him.
All right, guys. We hope you found this educational and entertaining. The assumption is that you could hear us through all the swearing. We're not sure. We'll see. And our biggest thanks of this episode goes to producer Jack for being long-suffering and beeping us all out. So with all that, we'll see you on the next one.
WriterDojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nivo. New episodes come out every Wednesday wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/WriterDojo, by leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@writerdojo.com.
This program is brought to you by the beef industry. Eat more beef.